Amen. Well, y'all can be seated. Yeah, that's allowed in here. Well, we are at the end of summer, and whenever I was a kid, this was always my least favorite part of the year. Not because I hated school. I don't know if y'all can tell by the glasses, but I kind of liked school a little too much, like a big nerd. But the school year, it always stretched me. Like I had all these commitments to church or to swimming, to homework, to being a fan of a 4 and 8 football team. It was a lot. And so the fall, it's coming. The fall is coming our way. And with that, life is sort of going to get back to normal. But really, when we say that, we mean that life is going to get busy again because our culture has completely normalized busyness, right? And with the dwindling time that we have left in summer, there are some things that I need to do, right? Like I need to get school supplies. I need to have one more bonding moment with my kids. I need to move out of our house that we're growing out of into a slightly larger one, just to give you all a window into my world right now. I need to do this. I need to do that. Right? And I think it's totally normal that in all the anticipation and all the preparation that we do at the beginning of August, that it's really easy to forget God. Like, what does God even have to say about all the details that I've yet to figure out? What does God have to do with the things that I need to get done? And there are two passages in his word for us today that we're going to look at. One's in Exodus 16, the other's in Matthew 14. Different parts of the Bible, but talking about similar people like you and me, dealing with similar stuff that we're dealing with, but what's God got to do with it? I had 3 friends that really spoke a lot into me about these 2 passages last week, and I wanted to share that with y'all. And so let's start at Exodus chapter 16, starting at the 11th verse. And here's what it says. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. So right up top, we're told about people who are grumbling, complaining. Why is that? One of the coolest stories in the Bible that we remember is God delivering the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. And we think fondly about that story because, there's bad guys, but then God swoops in and, God gives it to the bad guys, right? And he saves his people, right? Really cool. But we forget about what comes after. Israel, they start wandering through a harsh desert environment, both really hot and really cold, like biblical icy hot. All right? They're out of their comfort zones. The old rhythms of existence they have all been disrupted. They don't know. They just don't know. They don't have some of the things that they were used to back then. Even though they were enslaved, that time and that place was familiar to them. And so they just don't know. And when you don't know, it's really easy to get worried. Which I think is important for us to face, heading into this school season. I know we're not all in school, but we're all affected by the activities of the season. And there's a lot that you and I just don't know. You don't know if your family is going to grow closer or grow more apart this season. You don't know if you're going to make new friends. You don't know if your kids are going to lose certain friendships. I don't know if my son is going to ever be able to eat on his own. I don't know if I'll have enough bandwidth to be the husband, father, son, brother, friend that I'm supposed to be. I don't know. And really, I just want to know if things are going to be okay. My neediness and my not knowing if something will make it all right, that gets me worried. And when that's where my mind is going, I get frustrated about where my life is, and I complain about things being out of my control. That's what's happening here in this passage. But look at what it says in verse 13. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." I love how they have no clue how God did this, because they look at the ground and they're like, "What's that?" It's like when a baby looks at themselves in the mirror for the first time and they're like, "Who's that?" I've been seeing that a lot recently. But they couldn't explain how God did this. They couldn't comprehend how he worked. And what they're figuring out, and what you and I are kind of hesitant to get on board with, is that God is powerful enough to make things happen. And I can't explain it. Like in general, I can't rationalize how God makes water just pop out of a rock. I can't explain away how God can take someone who's been, crippled from birth and make them walk for the first time. Here's one. I can't explain how God can put it into the heart of a beautiful, brilliant woman to love an awkward guy that loves Taco Bell a little too much, even though he's a grown adult, right? I don't get that. But his power in here, in the scripture, and time again in my life, when I really reflect on my story, his power proves to be more than sufficient to help me with what I'm dealing with. And so this should be a simple recipe, right? If we're going, okay, there are things in my life that need figuring out, but I know that he's got the answer, he'll take care of it. But if you keep reading this story in Exodus 16, there's another part of it. God told the people to only get what you need for today. Just take what I give you today. Don't gather too much. Don't try to go ahead and figure out tomorrow's hunger. But you want to know what some of them did? They go ahead and they grab more than what they need. And I don't think they're doubting his power, but they take more, and some of it rots and smells bad. Some of it makes them sick. And I don't think in doing that, they're doubting God's power, because they've just seen it on full display. I think what they're doing is they're doubting, or they don't know who's using that power. They don't know the kind of person that's behind all of it. Because as wild as it is for God to somehow make bread appear on the ground every morning, as wild as it must have been to have watched God part the waters and free them from armies and chains, God does not do those things to show off. God doesn't do those things to flex on you. Did you catch it here, why he did it? It's right there in verse 12. God says that he did this so that they would know him. He shows his power in this way so that they would know the kind of God that he is. The whole reason that God brings food every day for every one of these people, he does that miracle so that they would get an idea of who he is. Why does that matter? Because this relationship, knowing, it can change the reality. This might be a weird example to communicate this, but I'll go for it. So I remember being in middle and high school, as a teenager, and every day after school, I would head on to swim practice. And 2 to 3 hours later, and thousands of calories burned later, I'd be at the end of practice and I would be starving. To the point where I couldn't think about anything but food. And that's kind of a need, right? Because if I don't get some food quickly, then, I'm not going to recover the right way, and my body's just going to devour itself, and I'm probably going to get dehydrated because hydrate or dihydrate is the way to go. But that need, that real need that I had to get some food in my system, I never really resented it or was bothered by it that much. Why? Because I knew that I was blessed with a special kind of relationship. I would always look forward to the end of practice and being that hungry because I knew that when I got home, my mom was cooking up something fierce, like she was making some really good pasta or whatever at home. Now, if I didn't have that, then I could have very easily been anxious about the situation because I didn't have a lot in terms of money in high school. And even when I did, I would spend it on something stupid. Like if I was hungry and I had money, I would go to the Krispy Kreme down the street and eat 32 donuts, true story, and throw it all up right after and be completely miserable. But I could trust that I had provision waiting for me at home, not because I always knew that the pantry was going to be full, but because I knew that someone who had a stake in my life cared about me. And that's why she made me dinner. Now, I can read about this power that God has, but if I don't know him, then I don't know why he would use his power in the first place. Because even if I believe that he has the ability to step in and move and heal, I can at the same time be misled to think, well, what if he's just like me sometimes? What if he's like what I know all too well? What if, you can't count on him and he's just going to be flaky sometime? What if I ask too much of him and I overstay my welcome and at some point I'm just going to get the cold shoulder? What if one day he just wants to have nothing to do with me? He's done. And if that's not who he is, then who is he? There's another story kind of like this one in Exodus, and it's in Matthew chapter 14. And I think in it we see exactly what kind of God that he is and what he wants us to know about him. This is Matthew 14, verse 13. Many of you have heard the story. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the town. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said, "They need not go away." I love that about God. They're all saying, "Send them away. We can't have them here." And Jesus is like, "I don't want them to. I want them to be with me here right now." And he said, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "We only have 5 loaves here and 2 fish. In John's gospel, they take a kid's lunch, which is, low-key kind of hilarious, but they just have the food in this one. And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the crowds. And I love that last line. And they all ate and were satisfied. They were satisfied. No one complained. No one sent it back. Now you've got to realize Jesus could have done any miracle that he wanted. Jesus could have, chosen whatever display of power that he felt like in the moment. He could have called down lightning. He could have teleported away. He could have done any of those miracles. But he knew what they needed. In other words, the bread that he makes appear and he multiplies, the bread is a glimpse of the reality that Jesus is a different kind of person that you and I can know. And here's who he is. When he sees you hungry, you're needy, you're overwhelmed, you're struggling, or you're desperate for any kind of help, what it says there in verse 14, he has compassion on you. He can't get you off of your mind when you're going through it, because what you're going through is felt by him. And he loves you so much, and his love has legs. It moves him. It's compassionate. It's not empty or hollow. And unlike you and me, God is not worried that he's ever going to run out of something. He's beyond rich. He is overflowing with everything that is good and everything we need. He has so much that he will never run out of any of it. And that's important for us to know, because when I'm worried about my unknowns, I can so easily be pulled to think that maybe, just maybe, God is stingy. That maybe God's weak like me, but he's not. He loves to give. He loves to forgive. He loves for you to know his goodness. I don't think there's anything that fires him up more. And so this might sound crazy, everyone, but hear me out when I say this, but thank God that I have needs. Thank God that I am so limited, because my needs show me that someone has compassion on me, that someone wants to help me, someone wants to provide for me. And so the thing that I'm really starving for today is not the stuff that I got on my plate to be fixed. Because I'm going to have other stuff come up tomorrow. So are you. We're all going to have stuff come up during the school year and next August. The thing I really need isn't really food, because I'll eat it and I'm just going to get hungry again. I need to know the person who has the power to chase away my deepest fears. The one who has the power to satisfy my deepest longings, who wants to bless me from the depths of his goodness. That's what I need. And God wants you to receive that relationship. And I want y'all to know that Jesus put things in these people's hands. They got to taste the miracle. They got to receive something from him. They were close to him. They were in this proximity to the relationship. And I could see it now that they're seeing God basically say, I know that you're struggling with things. I know that there are things that you're walking through. I just want to remind you that, yes, the miracle is bread for sure, and the people were satisfied. The miracle was bread, but I think the satisfaction goes so much deeper than just their stomachs being full. Because in John chapter 6, Jesus makes a statement. He says, yes, the miracle is about physical nourishment, but there's a much greater need. It's called spiritual nourishment. It's called healing for your soul. It's called you have a heart that has been hardened and torn up by worry and fear, and I'm here to give you a new one. You were once separated from God, but he came to make a way and bring you near to him. Jesus made a statement. He said, I, not the name of this church, not the name of this program, not the name of this closed group. He said, I, me, I am the bread. I'm the bread of life. And whoever comes to me will never hunger or thirst again. Whoever comes to me with their needs can come knowing that they have a Father who cares about them, who wants to answer and provide. And I just want to close by asking y'all, have y'all received this nourishment? The filling, the satisfaction of your soul that only Jesus can give you. He is the only bread of life that can guarantee that we will spend forever with him and never hunger or thirst again. But are you receiving that relationship? Because so many of us were looking for that same thing in all of the wrong places. And I'm here to tell you that it's not a job. It's not an amount of money. It's not an amount of status or reputation. It's not a house. It's not a neighborhood. It's not a boy. It's not a girl. It's not a substance. It's Him. It's Jesus and Jesus alone, and only He can satisfy. So if you are hungry today, if you're needy, if you're worried about all that's going to come with August and this fall and then the spring after that, if that's what's surrounding you and pressing in on you right now, then I got good news for you. You can come and receive the nourishment that your Father wants to give for His kids that He cares about. When you put your faith in Jesus and you receive the strength of this relationship, He will always satisfy. Let's pray together.